The night was cold and empty, and David sat alone in the corner of a small workers' tavern. His last coins lay scattered on the table, not enough for another drink, not enough for food tomorrow. He had worked in many places before, carrying heavy loads, digging mines, even cleaning machines. But jobs were gone now, replaced by robots, and David was just another human without hope then. On the cracked screen of the old job terminal in the tavern, a new message flashed. It was short, strange, and mysterious. Workers needed on distant colony, high pay, free housing, task, plow fields. David blinked at the words, his heart racing. Plowing fields? It sounded simple, almost too simple. Why would anyone pay so much for farm work? He pressed the accept button without thinking. The machine beeped, and a travel ticket printed out with glowing letters. Destination: Velora X Alien Agricultural Colony. Departure: tomorrow morning. David's hands shook as he picked up the ticket. He had no family, no home, nothing to lose. Maybe this was his chance. Maybe this was the escape he needed. The next day, the ship left Earth's orbit, carrying David and a few other desperate men. They sat silently, their faces pale, wondering what kind of work they had accepted. The stars stretched outside the window like silver rivers for days. The ship jumped through wormholes, carrying them deeper and deeper into alien space. When the ship landed, David stepped out onto red soil under a sky of twin suns. The air was warm, sweet, and filled with strange smells of flowers he had never seen before. Fields stretched as far as the eye could see, glowing with tall, shimmering plants, and standing near the landing bay were alien figures. Tall and graceful, they were women, all women, with luminous eyes and long flowing hair that shimmered like liquid silver. David froze. He'd expected tractors, barns, maybe old farmers in dirty clothes, but instead, these alien women watched him with quiet curiosity. Their voices were soft, musical, as they welcomed the workers. "You have come to plow our fields," one of them said, her eyes fixed on David. The way she said it made his heart pound harder. Her words carried something deeper, something hidden, something he did not understand. That night, they gave him a small cabin near the fields. The bed was soft. The air smelled of sweet fruit. But David could not sleep. The memory of those women haunted his mind. Why were there no men among them? Why had the job paid so much for simple farming? And why had the woman looked at him like that, with eyes that seemed to hold secrets? Outside his window, he saw shadows moving among the glowing plants. Voices whispered in a language he did not know, and somewhere far away, a strange sound echoed, half song, half cry. It sent a shiver down his spine. As he lay in the dark, the door creaked open. A figure stepped inside, one of the alien women, her silver hair glowing in the moonlight. She stood silent for a moment, watching him. Then she spoke softly. "Tomorrow, human, you will learn the truth of your work." David sat up, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" he whispered, but the woman only smiled, her eyes shining. Then she turned and vanished into the night, leaving the door half open. David could not sleep anymore. His chest felt tight, his mind full of questions. What truth would he learn tomorrow? Why had she come to his room in secret? And what kind of job had he really accepted? The stars outside burned bright. The alien world seemed to whisper around him. And David realized one thing with chilling certainty. This was no ordinary farm, and the job he had taken was no ordinary job. Tomorrow, his life would change forever. The morning light on Velora 9 was unlike anything David had seen before. Twin suns rose together, one golden, one pale blue, painting the fields in fire and ice. The air was thick with the scent of alien fruit, and the ground seemed to hum softly beneath his boots. David rubbed his eyes, trying to push away the memory of last night. The silver-haired woman's words echoed in his mind. "Tomorrow, human, you will learn the truth of your work." He stepped outside, and the other workers were already gathering. Most of them looked as uneasy as he felt, their faces pale and Stiff, before them stood a group of alien women, tall and elegant, dressed in robes woven with threads that shimmered like starlight. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward. Her eyes were emerald green, glowing faintly in the light. "You are here to plow our fields," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "You will begin today." David was handed a long curved tool, unlike any plow he had seen. The handle pulsed faintly with light, alive in his grip. He glanced at the others, who seemed just as confused. Was this a machine? A weapon? Or something else? The aliens led them into the wide fields, where tall stalks of glowing plants reached up to the suns. The plants bent slightly as if bowing when the women walked past. David felt uneasy, as though the farm itself was alive and watching. "Begin," the leader said. David raised the tool and pushed it into the soil. Instead of digging dirt, the ground rippled like water. A strange vibration shot through his arms, filling his chest with warmth. The plants around him shivered and released a soft humming sound, almost like singing. The other men cried out in shock as their tools reacted the same way. This was no ordinary plowing. The alien women watched silently, their expressions unreadable. David's heart pounded. What kind of farming was this? Why did the plants respond to him, as if they knew he was human? Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The suns moved across the sky, and sweat covered his skin. But the more he worked, the stranger it became. He felt energy flowing through him, energy that didn't belong to the soil. At times he swore. He could feel the eyes of the alien women on his back, studying him, measuring him. David was exhausted. The men were taken back to their cabins, but unlike yesterday, the aliens lingered close, whispering among themselves, their musical voices carried across the air. But the words were impossible to understand. One of them, the same silver-haired woman who had entered his room, walked past him. She looked at him for a long time before saying softly, "You worked well. Too well." David froze. "What do you mean?" he asked, but she only smiled faintly and turned away, her hair catching the light like liquid moon. Inside his cabin, he collapsed onto the bed, his muscles burning. He tried to convince himself that this was just farming, just strange alien technology, but deep down, he knew it wasn't true. The tool had connected to him, drawn something out of him, and the plants had responded like living things craving his touch. That night, the farm was alive with sounds again. The strange song cry carried across the fields. It was louder now, closer, almost calling to him. David rose from his bed and stepped outside. The sky was filled with stars, and the fields glowed faintly under the twin moons. He saw shadows moving among the plants, the alien women again. But this time, they weren't working. They were kneeling, hands pressed against the soil, their voices rising in song. The melody was haunting, beautiful, and filled with something he could not name. Suddenly, the silver-haired woman turned her head and looked directly at him. Her eyes burned with a strange light. She raised her hand, beckoning him forward. David's heart hammered in his chest. He wanted to step back, to hide in his cabin, but his legs moved on their own, carrying him toward her. When he reached her, she placed a hand on his chest. Her skin was warm, almost burning, and her touch sent shivers racing through him. "Tomorrow," she whispered, her voice trembling, "you will not only plow the fields, you will plow something greater." Her words left him speechless before he could respond. She turned away and melted back into the singing circle. David stumbled back to his cabin, his mind spinning with fear and curiosity. Lying awake, he realized he was caught in something far stranger than a farming job. The fields, the tools, the women, all of it hid a deeper secret, and now they were watching him closely, waiting for him to take the next step. Tomorrow, the truth would no longer hide. Tomorrow, he would finally learn what his real job was, and deep down, he feared it would change everything, forever. David woke before the suns rose. He had barely slept, his mind chasing the memory of the silver-haired woman's words. "You will not only plow the fields, You will plow something greater. The meaning twisted in his thoughts like a riddle. He dressed quickly, his chest tight with unease. The cabin door opened with a soft hiss, and 2 alien women stood waiting. They did not speak but gestured for him to follow. David hesitated, then stepped out. The morning air was cool, but the fields shimmered strangely, as though alive. The women led him not to the farmlands, but to a structure he had never seen before. A tall, crystal-like hall that glowed faintly with inner light. The walls pulsed like veins, alive with energy. Inside, more women were gathered, standing in silence, their eyes fixed on him as though he were something rare, something sacred. At the center stood the tall, emerald-eyed leader, her robe flowing around her like liquid fire. "Human," she spoke, her voice ringing through the chamber. "You wonder why you were brought here." David swallowed hard, his hands clenched at his sides. "Yes," he whispered. "You said I was to plow fields. But this is no farm." The leader stepped closer, her gaze sharp and deep. "You are correct, human David. The soil you touched yesterday is not just dirt. It is living. It breathes with us. It carries the memory of our people." She paused, then continued, her tone heavy. "Our kind has no males left. We have waited generations. We searched among the stars for those who might carry the seed of renewal." David's heart slammed against his ribs. Her words struck him with sudden clarity. Plow the fields. Plow something greater. It wasn't farming at all. They hadn't brought him to feed their people. They had brought him to give them children. He stepped back, shaking his head. "You mean, you want me?" The leader raised her hand, silencing him. "We do not force. We offer a choice. Stay and help us continue, or leave and forget this place." Around him, the women's eyes glowed faintly, watching, waiting. David felt the weight of their stares, hope, fear, and longing all mixed in one. He thought of Earth, of hunger, poverty, of being invisible in a world that had no place for him. And now here he was, a stranger in a distant land. Suddenly needed, suddenly important. But could he do it? Could he become what they asked? The silver-haired woman stepped forward from the crowd. Her voice was softer, trembling. "I am Layara," she said. "Last night, I came to you because I felt your strength. I wish to tell you before the others, we do not seek to trap you. We seek to join with you." David stared at her, his throat dry. Everything about her seemed unreal. Her luminous hair, her radiant eyes, her calm presence. But the warmth in her voice felt human, almost comforting. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "There are many humans. Why bring me?" Liara tilted her head, her silver hair falling like water. "Because you carry the spirit of survival. You came here with nothing, yet you still rise each day. Our people need that strength. Our children need it." David turned to the leader again. "What if I say no?" The hall grew silent. The leader's voice was calm but cold. "Then you will be taken back to your ship. You will return to your world with wealth, food, and comfort, and we will wait for another human to answer our call." The words hung in the air like a blade. David felt dizzy, his breath uneven. This was not a scam, not a trick. This was real. These women were asking him to save their future. Later, they led him out of the hall. The suns had climbed higher, painting the fields with light. The men he had traveled with worked far away, still believing they were simply farming. David's head spun with the truth. Should he tell them? Should he keep it hidden? Would they even believe him? That evening, he returned to his cabin. But the silence was broken when Liara entered again. Her steps were slow, her eyes full of something he could not name. She sat across from him, folding her hands neatly. "You are afraid," she said softly. "Yes," David admitted. "Everything about this is wrong. But also, it feels like I was meant to be here." Liara leaned closer, her voice low. "Tomorrow, you will be tested, not just your body, but your spirit, if you cannot bond with. You cannot remain." David stared at her, his pulse racing. "What do you mean tested?" She rose, her silver hair glowing in the dim cabin light. "You will know when the suns rise." And then she was gone. leaving David with nothing but his racing thoughts. That night, the song cry of the alien women rose again, but this time, David heard something new in it. It was not only music, it was calling. It was reaching inside him, stirring something he didn't understand. He lay in bed, his eyes wide open. He knew tomorrow would decide everything, his freedom, his future, maybe even his place in the universe. The truth was revealed, but the real test was only about to begin. Asterisk. The suns rose again over Valora Ix, casting long shadows across the glowing fields. David stood outside his cabin, his stomach twisting, his hands trembling. The night had been endless, filled with dreams of voices, songs, and the piercing gaze of Layara, the silver-haired alien woman. Today was the day she had warned him about. Today he would be tested. 2 alien women arrived at his door, silent as ever, their robes shimmering like moving light. They led him away from the cabins, and through winding paths of tall plants that whispered as he passed. David could feel the weight of the fields pressing against him, almost alive, almost breathing. Finally, they reached another structure, not the crystal hall from yesterday, but a smaller chamber, carved deep into the earth. The air was heavy. Here, warm and thick with strange perfumes. At the center of the chamber stood the leader with emerald eyes, her expression calm and cold. Beside her was Layara, her silver hair glowing in the dim light, her face unreadable. Human, the leader said, her voice echoing. Today you face the first trial. If you cannot endure, you will leave. If you succeed, you may stay. David's throat tightened. What kind of trial? The leader raised her hand. From the shadows stepped another alien woman, tall and radiant, her skin faintly glowing, her eyes golden like twin suns. This is Saraya, the leader continued. She will join with you, if you can bond with her. If your spirit and your body connect, then you prove your worth. David's pulse hammered in his ears. So this was it. Not just a test of strength, but of something far deeper, a bond, a connection, a step into the unknown. Saraya approached him slowly, her steps graceful, her gaze sharp. David stepped back instinctively, his breath uneven. Her presence was overwhelming, almost magnetic. She stopped just before him, studying him closely. You are afraid, she said, her voice like warm wind. But fear is not weakness. It is the beginning of strength. Her words cut into him. He wanted to run, to escape this strange trial. But at the same time, a strange pull kept him rooted in place. Place your hand upon hers, the leader commanded. Saraya raised her hand, palm open, glowing faintly. David hesitated, then slowly placed his hand against hers. The moment they touched, his body jolted. A surge of energy rushed into him, filling his chest. He gasped, his knees buckling. It felt as though the soil, the fields, even the air itself had poured into him. Saraya's eyes widened slightly, her lips curving into a faint smile. You feel it, don't you? The bond. David struggled to speak. I don't understand. She leaned closer, her golden eyes burning. You don't need to understand, you only need to accept. The chamber grew warmer, the air shimmered, and David felt as if the walls themselves were watching. Saraya guided him through the ritual, her voice soft but commanding. Every step drew him deeper. Every breath filled him with energy not his own. But then, something shifted. David's chest tightened, his body shaking. The energy grew heavier, darker, overwhelming him. He stumbled back, gasping, his vision blurred, and the ground seemed to tilt beneath him. Saraya frowned, her glow dimming. He resists, she said sharply, turning toward the leader. He doubts. The leader's emerald eyes narrowed. If he cannot overcome, he is unworthy. David clenched his fists, his mind racing. No, he thought, he couldn't fail here. Not now. He remembered Earth, the empty taverns, the hunger, the hopeless days of being unwanted. He had been nothing there. But here, for the first time, someone needed him. A whole people depended on him. He raised his head, his voice steady. No, he said firmly. I won't resist. He stepped forward again, pressing his hand to Soraya's. This time he let the energy flow freely. It poured into him like fire and light, burning, reshaping. His body trembled, but he stood tall, refusing to fall. Soraya's eyes widened, her golden glow flaring brighter. She smiled faintly. Yes. He accepts. The leader nodded slowly. The first bond is complete. The trial ended with David collapsing to his knees, his chest heaving, his body drenched in sweat. Liara rushed forward, catching him before he hit the ground. Her arms were surprisingly gentle, her voice soft. "You did well," she whispered. But her eyes held something else, worry, and perhaps jealousy. David looked up at her, his voice hoarse. "What happens now?" The leader's voice answered, sharp and heavy. "Now you face the greater trials. This was only the beginning. If you cannot bond with one, you cannot bond with many, and our people need many." David's heart sank. Many? Just how far would they push him? That night, back in his cabin, his body ached with exhaustion, but his mind refused to rest. The touch of Soraya still burned on his skin, the bond alive inside him, and Lyra's worried eyes haunted him. She had held him with care, but she had also looked at Soraya with something sharp, something almost human, jealousy. David realized then that this was not just about survival. It was about choices, about bonds, about emotions he never expected. And with every trial, the line between his world and theirs blurred further. He lay awake, staring at the alien stars, knowing the first trial was only a doorway, and the true challenge had only just begun. The days after the first trial passed slowly, but each one carried its own weight. David's body still ached from the bond with Soraya. His chest burned with strange energy that never left him. It was as if something had been planted inside him, alive and restless. He tried to work in the fields like before, but now the soil and the plants reacted more strongly, bending toward him, humming louder. The other men noticed too, whispering among themselves. Uneasy, but David kept silent, for he knew the truth of his task, a truth the others had not yet been told. The alien women watched him closely each day. Their glowing eyes followed his movements. Their whispers filled the air whenever he passed. It was not just curiosity, it was expectation. They waited for him to grow into the role they believed he was destined to play. One evening, Liara visited his cabin again. She entered quietly, her silver hair shining in the faint moonlight, her face calm yet full of hidden emotion. "You are changing," she said softly. Sitting across from him, David frowned. "Changing? How?" "You feel it," she whispered. "The bond inside you, the soil calls to you. The plants answer your touch. You are not only human anymore, you are becoming something between us and you." David shivered at her words. "I never asked for this," he muttered. "No," Liara replied gently, "but destiny does not ask. It gives, it demands, and you must decide whether to accept it." The next day, David was brought to another gathering in the Crystal Hall. This time, it was not just one woman or one leader. Dozens of alien women stood in a circle, their robes glowing faintly, their eyes fixed on him. The leader raised her hand, her emerald eyes blazing. "Human," she said, "you have passed the first trial, but our people do not survive with one. We need many. You must bond again and again, until you are one with our kind." David's throat tightened. He remembered the pain, the fire, the overwhelming energy of Soraya, and now they wanted more. His body felt weak just thinking about it. But their voices carried no doubt, no hesitation. To them, this was not cruelty. It was survival. That night, David sat outside his cabin. Staring at the twin moons, he thought of Earth again, of the taverns where no one cared if he lived or died, of the streets filled with men like him, forgotten, unwanted. And then he looked at the fields glowing softly, breathing with life. Here, he was not invisible. Here, he was chosen, needed, almost sacred. A strange thought grew in him. Maybe this was his chance to matter, not just for himself, but for an entire people. Still, The fear lingered in his chest, whispering, how long could he endure? How many trials before his body broke? The next trial came sooner than he expected. This time, it was not Saraya, not Liara. It was another woman, smaller, with eyes the color of storms, her presence sharp and fierce. Her name was Kaylin, and, unlike the others, she did not smile. She looked at him with suspicion, almost anger. You are not one of us, she said bluntly. You are human, weak, fragile. You do not belong here. David clenched his jaw. Then why am I here? Because the elders believe, Kaylin replied, her voice cold. But I do not. Show me your strength, or prove me right. The bond with Kaylin was harsher than before. Where Saraya had been warmth and light, Kaylin was storm and fire. Every touch burned, every breath shook him to the core. He gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. Kaylin's golden storm eyes narrowed as she pushed harder. But David pushed back, his will like steel. Finally, she gasped, stepping away, her face pale, her eyes wide. He endured, she whispered. The leader nodded slowly. Good, he adapts. Back in his cabin, David collapsed onto the bed, sweat pouring down his face. His muscles trembled, his mind raced. But in his chest, beneath the pain, was a spark of pride. He had survived again, and this time, it had not broken him. It had made him stronger. Liara came to him that night as always. But this time, her voice carried both warmth and worry. You are changing faster than I thought, she said, her silver eyes watching him closely. You are no longer only human, and soon, you will not even realize it. David looked at her, his voice rough. Do you fear that? Liara hesitated, then whispered, yes. The days turned into weeks, and with each trial David grew, his body stronger, his spirit sharper, his presence heavier. Even the fields bent toward him now, humming louder when he walked among them. The alien women whispered his name with reverence. The men he had traveled with no longer looked him in the eye. They worked silently, afraid, as though David had become something beyond them. One night, as the song cry rose across the fields again, David stood outside, listening. This time, he understood it, not in words, but in feeling, a call, a promise, a future. And in his heart, he realized the truth. He was no longer just adapting. He was becoming, and soon, the choice would not be whether he stayed or left, but whether he was still human at all. Asterisk. The trials had left David stronger, but also restless. His body no longer felt like it belonged to Earth. Every breath he took filled him with the rhythm of Velora Ix. The soil responded to his steps. The plants bent toward him, and the alien women whispered his name as if it carried sacred power. But David could not escape the weight of what was coming. He had bonded with more than one of them now, and each time it left him changed. Each night, Liara came to him, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dark. She touched his hand, watched his eyes, and whispered her fears. You are carrying too much, David, she said softly. Our leaders will not stop. They will demand more. They will demand everything. David wanted to believe she was wrong, but deep inside he knew she was right. He had seen the way the leader with emerald eyes watched him, not as a man, not even as a guest, but as a tool, a bridge, a vessel, a future they could shape for their survival. One morning, the leader summoned him again to the crystal hall. Dozens of women stood waiting, their glowing eyes fixed on him. The air was heavy with expectation. The leader raised her hand, her voice echoing like thunder in the chamber. Human David, she began, you have proven yourself through trial. You have adapted, you have endured, but now you must face the truth of your role. David's chest tightened. What truth? He asked carefully. The leader's emerald eyes burned into him. This farm is only one place, one village. There are many more across Velora Ix. Entire clans of women who wait, entire bloodlines that cannot continue without you. You are not here to serve a field or a house. You are here to serve a people. The words struck him like a hammer. He stepped back, shaking his head. An entire people? I can't. I'm only one man. The leader's voice grew colder. Not one man, the one who answered. The one who endures. The circle of women whispered, their voices like wind in the chamber. David felt the air pressing against his skin, the weight of their hope and need crushing him. That night, he sat outside his cabin, staring at the twin moons. The sky burned with silver fire. The fields hummed softly around him. Liara came again. But this time she looked different. Her face carried sorrow, her silver eyes heavy with unspoken truth. You heard them, she said quietly. Sitting beside him, they will not stop at one. They will send you across the land, to every clan, every gathering. They will make you the father of Valora's future. David clenched his fists, his chest tightening. I never asked for this, he whispered. Liara turned her head, her hair shining in the moonlight. Neither did we. But the truth is cruel, and survival is crueler. He looked at her, his voice trembling. And what do you want, Liara? Do you see me as a savior, or just a tool? For the first time her voice broke. I see you as a man, David, a man I fear they will destroy. Days passed, and David was taken beyond the farm. He rode in strange alien crafts across glowing plains and crystal rivers. Everywhere he went, the same scene repeated. Villages filled only with women, their eyes filled with hunger and hope when they saw him. They bowed as he passed, whispered his name like a prayer. David, they sang softly. The human, the bridge, the father to come. The weight grew heavier with every step. He saw children clinging to their mothers' robes, wide-eyed. He saw elders bowing their heads, tears glowing in their eyes. Every face looked at him as though he was already their answer, already their destiny. But deep in his chest, fear gnawed at him. How long could he carry this? How long before his body broke or his spirit gave in? And if he did fall, what would become of them? One evening, after traveling to yet another village, David sat alone in his cabin. The voices of the alien women outside rose in song, but this time, he didn't hear beauty. He heard chains, chains made of hope and expectation, chains he had never chosen but could not escape. Liara entered quietly, as she always did, but tonight her eyes were wet, her voice trembling. They are sending you to the gathering tomorrow, she whispered. David frowned. What gathering? Her hands shook as she gripped his arm. The grand circle, 1,000 women will be there. 1,000 eyes watching. They will ask you to choose, David, to accept not just one village, not just one clan, but all of Valora. David's heart stopped. All of them? He whispered. Liara nodded. You will stand before them, and they will make you answer if you say yes. You will belong to Valora forever. That night, David could not sleep. His thoughts spun like fire. His chest burned with the energy of his bonds. He stared at the stars above and wondered if anyone on earth could even imagine this. A forgotten man, a worker no one cared about, now standing on the edge of carrying the future of an alien race. But was it salvation? Or was it a prison? Was he a savior? Or was he just a tool dressed in the illusion of destiny? The moons shifted in the sky, and the fields whispered softly around him. David knew tomorrow would decide everything, not only for the alien women, but for him, for the last fragile piece of his humanity. The morning of the gathering came with a silence that pressed heavy against David's chest. The songs of the women were gone, the humming of the fields muted. Even the air itself felt still, as though the whole planet was holding its breath. 2 guards in silver robes came for him. They did not speak, only gestured for him to follow. David's steps felt heavier than ever before. Every part of him screamed to turn back, to run. But there was no escape, not now, not when thousands of eyes were waiting. The grand circle stood on a plateau overlooking the glowing plains. Crystals rose from the ground like towers, humming softly with power. And gathered there were more alien women than David had ever seen. Rows upon rows, circles within circles, stretching as far as his eyes could follow. Their robes shimmered in every shade of starlight. Their eyes burned with hunger, hope, and desperate need. At the center stood the emerald-eyed leader, her gaze fixed on him with sharp intensity. Beside her, Liara stood silent, her silver hair falling across her face. David wanted to meet her eyes, but she would not look at him. Perhaps she feared what was coming as much as he did. The leader raised her hand, and the crowd fell into complete silence. "Human David," her voice rang out, strong and clear. "You have faced trials, you have endured, you have bonded, now before all of Velora. We ask you the final question. Will you accept your destiny as the father of our future? Will you bind yourself to our people forever?" The words echoed across the plateau. David's knees felt weak, his breath shallow. He looked out at the countless women watching him, every face filled with expectation, every heart tied to the choice he was about to make. His mind raced. On Earth, he had been nothing. Forgotten, invisible, another worker lost in a dying world. Here, he was everything. A savior, a bridge, the answer to their survival. But was he free? Was this truly his choice, or had he been trapped in a cage built of need and desperation? He closed his eyes, memories flashing. The first time he touched the alien soil and felt it hum beneath his hands. The fire of Soraya's bond, the storm of Kellen's test, and Liara, always there, watching, guiding, afraid for him even when the others saw only destiny. When he opened his eyes, he saw Liara at last. Her gaze finally met his, trembling with emotion. Her lips moved soundlessly. But he understood the words she whispered. "Choose." David stepped forward, his voice carrying across the silence. "You want me to decide. You want me to choose my place here. But before I answer, I need you to understand something. On Earth, I was no one. I was forgotten, unwanted. Here, I became needed. But need is not the same as love. Expectation is not the same as freedom." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, their glowing eyes shifting uneasily. The leader's face hardened, but she did not interrupt. David's voice grew stronger. "I will not be your prisoner. I will not be a tool. If I am to stay, I will stay as a man. Not a machine, not a slave. I will stay only if you see me as more than a seed for your survival. Only if you accept me as one of you, not above you, not below you, but with you." The silence was deep, heavy. Then, from the edge of the circle, a single voice rose. Lyra's. "He speaks truth," she called, her voice trembling but firm. "If he is only a tool, his spirit will break, and so will our future. But if he is a man among us, he will endure, and so will we." The crowd shifted, whispers turning to voices, voices rising to song. The song was different this time, not the desperate cry he had always heard, but something softer, warmer, carrying a note of hope without. "Chains." The leader's emerald eyes narrowed. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then at last, she lowered her hand. "Very well," she said slowly. "You have spoken as more than human. You have spoken as one of Velora. Then you shall not be only the father of our future. You shall be part of it." Relief washed over David, his chest loosening for the first time in weeks. Liara's eyes met his again, shining with quiet pride. But David knew the path ahead was not simple. The women of Velora still needed him. The weight of their future still rested on his shoulders. But now, it would not be forced. It would be chosen. That night, as the twin moons rose high, David stood outside the grand circle. The fields glowed softly. The soil hummed beneath his feet. And for the first time, he did not feel like an outsider. He felt like part of something larger. Not just a man from Earth, not just a worker forgotten, but a man who had been given a choice and had made it his own. The stars stretched endlessly above him, and David whispered into the night, "I will stay, not because I must, but because I choose to." The soil hummed in answer. The fields bowed toward him, and the alien world of Velora the Ninth sang softly, for its future had finally found its voice. Asterisk.